It goes up. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the first episode of the CHH podcast. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I know we're starting about 20 minutes late, so sorry about that. It's our first time using StreamYard in a while. So, because without StreamYard, we can't both be in here. So, we got to get it all set up. And we're going to be going over the Offseason and Summer League today. And I'm joined by
Ian. What's up? You can also Clubhouse Chatter. Go follow the baseball podcast on Spotify, Instagram, wherever you can find us, honestly, besides YouTube. But we might be branching out to that sometime soon anyways. Jake, what's our first topic?
Probably would be a good idea to do that. But besides that, so our first topic is going to be about, just give me 1 second. I'm just getting something fixed real quick. But our first topic today is going to be talking about the offseason. So the Hornets in the offseason, they made pretty much two moves. You got first move, which was signing LaMelo to a Supermax extension. And the second move was the Miles Bridges qualifying offer signing. And then there's still a lot of unknowns with Kelly Oubre, PJ Washington, etc.
So I honestly think the LaMelo thing was an incredibly good idea, in my personal opinion, because it really, even though we haven't made any moves yet, really, this offseason, it set us up to be able to make more. And it put a lot of the pressure off of the Hornets to re-sign LaMelo. And it's really good from a ticket standpoint because you at least keep him, which will keep people somewhat coming to games for the next couple seasons. Because they're like, oh, I want to see LaMelo ball because what's he going to do tonight that's so special?
Right, makes sense. Yeah, with LaMelo, I think that's a good extension because LaMelo obviously getting up to over 200 million, pretty much the standard now at this point in the NBA. Pretty much any good young player that at least plays pretty well, that's drafted pretty high up normally, pretty much gets their contract. So even though with the new CBA, which would make it a little bit harder, if you want to be competitive, you kind of have to keep a guy like that around, especially with how the team's been and how good he's looked, other than his injuries so far this year. But other than that, I think that's a good signing. Bringing him to the extension as quick as possible. As the longer you wait, that money's just going up every year. So you want to get it in before it gets even higher up. So I think that's a good move. And then with Miles Bridges, he wanted a long-term contract. Like they were trying to get in the ballpark of 20 mil a year for multiple years, which before, when he was supposed to get signed before his whole mess happened, that's probably what he would have got around there, maybe a little bit more. But with that, that's before the whole incident happened. Now with that whole incident, he hasn't played for a whole year. It looks like he's been keeping in shape because he's been at the gym and stuff that he's been posting. Yeah. So it looks like he's probably kept himself in shape, but obviously you won't know until game time if he's kept his conditioning up and all that stuff. So if you're the Hornets, you're not going to give him like a 3-year 60 mil or something like that. And then what if he's not as good? You don't want to do that. So the Hornets are like, no, we're not giving you a long-term deal. But Bridges wanted that. So they ended up just doing the qualifying offer of 7.9, and it'll give him something this year. And then at least his plan would be to play like he did in the last year. He did play in the NBA, play like that again, get a big contract from there, either with the Hornets or somewhere else. And the unfortunate thing for the Hornets will be is that he's going to be a free agent after the year, and it's unrestricted free agent, which means there's a pretty good possibility that he leaves the team if the Hornets aren't willing to dish out the money, which could be possible now that they paid LaMelo. But also there is a new ownership, as you guys know, so maybe they would be willing to kind of spend and get this team competitive. But the thing is with new ownership, sometimes they like to just break the whole team up and just start over from scratch almost, except for obviously your star player, which is LaMelo. But besides that, so it depends what way they take it. They either go all in with everything they have, or they just say, this isn't the core we want. They say, all right, everybody's gone other than LaMelo, get as many draft picks, young assets, try to rebuild from there. Because obviously LaMelo still has a while on his timeline, so it's not like, oh, he's getting old, we got to hurry up and win now. So it depends what their view is.
I will say, from the new ownership standpoint, from what I've heard, yes, there will be some changes made, but I don't think that those are going to be player-based changes. I think they want to keep the team that we have because we have a good, solid team right now. It's just they need to stay healthy. If they stay healthy, we're a contender in the East, believe it or not. And
yeah, I mean, it would probably be like either play-in or like a 6 seed. I don't think much higher than that, at least. they have
I
now.
mean, if you remember 2 years ago, we were a top 4 team before we got injured, and then we got injured to God knows where and back, and then all of a sudden we're down in a play-in spot, losing to the Hawks by 40 in the play-in game. But that's the
And the
thing. If
Pacers, you
we
got
stay
destroyed.
healthy, we are a good team. We are a good team when we stay healthy. And I think, especially with the new ownership, I've heard that they are willing to spend, or else they wouldn't have spent the money to buy the team in the first place. And you also have to think, Plotkin, who's he somewhat in relations with? Uncle Steve of the New York Mets. Gabe Plotkin and him were actually very good friends. They ran a bunch of companies. So they both have the same mindset of spending money to help those teams win.
Yeah, we'll have to see what they end up doing with the Hornets because it just depends on the ownership. But it would make sense if they are willing to spend a little bit because you should be able to get some guys to come. You're gonna have to overpay at the beginning because it's still Charlotte and it's not a huge market. So to get people to come here, that's that. But you should be able to at least draw them a little bit with LaMelo being there. Maybe helps a little bit. You're still gonna have to overpay most likely because it still is Charlotte at the end of the day, and they haven't had playoff success in pretty much ever almost because they've never even made it to the conference finals. So I mean, I know in the past they've made the playoffs like consistently, like in the 90s and stuff. They've made it, but
yeah,
they've
no, I
never
get what
really
you're saying. And also
done
to add
anything
to the
significant. That's the problem.
to add to the Bridges thing, I think it's a good signing, and I think we will definitely have enough to pay him next year. I
Yeah,
really do think we will pay him next year, depending on if he's good or not.
right.
If he's good, we'll pay him. We'll match the deal, because that's another thing. Like
Well,
Michael Jordan didn't spend as much. He didn't want to go over the luxury tax. So if this was the situation, let's say Miles Bridges has career year next year and is incredible again. So it's looking like the exact same scenario we would have been in, except this time he's not restricted and he's unrestricted. We're going to actually pay more than other teams, I feel like, to keep him here. Because if he has that type of a season, I think we will pay, because I think that'll make us a contender, even more of one next year, because we'll have the money to spend for that and for another player because of Gordon Hayward's contract expiring next year, and then Terry's contract expiring 2 years from now, assuming that he doesn't even get traded this year. If we trade Terry, then that opens up even more space for us for next year.
The only problem is with Bridges is he's not going to be restricted, so there's a good chance that we aren't willing to pay him as much as another team, but at the same time, we should be willing to pay. So the problem is there might be a team like, I don't know, let's just throw out a random team. Obviously, they don't have money, so it probably wouldn't happen. But let's just say the Lakers, for instance. They give them, I don't know, 4 years, $80 million. Hornets gave him the same exact contract. The problem is most players would rather be in LA, which is a bigger market. So that's the problem. And that's
but it's a worse team. You wouldn't go to a team that's going to be worse.
That's what I was going to say.
The same amount of money, you're not going to go to a team that's going to be worse. And don't even tell me the Lakers won't be, because they won't have LeBron after next year, because wherever Bronny goes, LeBron's going. And I guarantee you it won't be the Lakers.
Yeah, the only thing I was saying is the problem is if the teams are just almost as good, pretty similar, and it's a bigger contract, he might go somewhere else. If it's a smaller contract, depends on what he's looking for. If he's looking to stay loyal with LaMelo, because there's a good possibility
of his chemistry with LaMelo and the team, he will not go somewhere else because of that. I'm telling you, if it is the same amount of money and either it's a same level team or even lower, he's gonna stay here. If it's a team that's a bit higher, I still think he stays here because of the chemistry with LaMelo. If the chemistry between LaMelo and Miles is so good, I think that they will stay. But here's another thing. If it's like a team like, I don't know, the Bucks or someone like that, no, he's going to go there if they're paying him the same amount. Unless we somehow are better than the Bucks next year. If we're better than the Bucks next year, because we aren't even taking into consideration right now, we could be one of the top teams in the league. Because remember, when we had our full starting lineup last year, in the 6 games we had them, we were 5-1.
Yeah, the only thing is we'll have to see, because they still have PJ Washington currently as a restricted free agent. it's sounding like he's probably going to come back on the qualifying, but he's trying to work out a long-term deal, and the Hornets and him are very far away apart right now. So it's sounding like it's probably just going to be the same thing as Miles, where he picks up his qualifying offer and then plays out the year, and then they're both going to be unrestricted at the end of the year. But we'll have to see what they do with that. And then also you still have Kelly Oubre on the market. He's interesting. We'll see if he signs somewhere else. I've heard reports of him wanting to go to Dallas, but I don't think they have any more money because they've already spent a lot on Kyrie. And then obviously Grant Williams, they just did a sign and trade with the Celtics recently, like a week or two ago. So I'm not sure if they're going to have enough money now for Kelly. And then Dennis Smith already left. He went to the Nets. Wish him the best of luck in Brooklyn. Reports I heard is Charlotte only offered him a minimum deal, and the Nets offered him $2.5 million. So if you're Dennis, what would you rather do? Get more money, at least in my opinion.
I have an opinion on the PJ situation. I think that he doesn't become an unrestricted free agent next year. I think we give him a contract extension midway through the season. I think he agrees on something at that point. Bridges, I think it'll be next year in free agency because you still want to see what he has from offers, but I think we will still get him back. Oubre, that's a tough one because now with the new ownership, now it's a lot easier to get them, but the problem is when it gets to when it was with Michael Jordan, he wasn't going to pay Oubre that much anyways. So I didn't think we were going to get Oubre back, but now thinking about it, I think we could get Oubre back. I think we get all three of them back. The problem with Oubre is where would he play with Brandon Miller now?
Yeah, the thing is, originally, he was really, when he came into Charlotte, he was supposed to be a sixth man. He wasn't really supposed to start. But the contract he had was okay with a sixth man. He was making, I forget, it was either 12 or 13 mil a year for 2 years, which, I mean, that's a little bit expensive for your bench. But if you're a contender, you can have that coming off the bench. Just the only thing I think is going to happen is I think he's personally going to leave because the Hornets, you also have to keep in mind there's the new CBA now. And if you get too close to that cap, you're pretty much get very limited, like once you go over a certain threshold. So I think with the Hornets are probably just going to let him walk because to get Oubre back, you're probably going to have to pay him, I would guess, probably about $20 million a year at minimum is my guess, except if he wants to take a discount. And then also you're going to have to pay Bridges and Washington possibly at that same around price of probably in the range of 17-20 million as well. And if you start paying all these guys, you're going to have no money left, and you're either A, going to be over that luxury tax, and you're going to start being over that apron and getting pretty much screwed over, or B, you're going to be right at it and you can't sign anyone else. So you're going to be stuck with just LaMelo, PJ, Miles, Oubre, and that's pretty much your team, except for rookies and just like small contract guys. So that's the problem I'm seeing.
Another thing with the whole Oubre thing, I think, one, I think he wants to stay here, but two, here's the problem with bringing him back. He has nowhere to play because you have Brandon Miller, then you have Hayward or Bridges, most likely Bridges, then Hayward, and then it would be Oubre. Oubre would be fourth string on the small forwards. And I get, yes, you can put Miles Bridges at power forward, but where's PJ going to play then? So PJ is the starting power forward. Miles Bridges is going to be your starting small forward. Brandon Miller's probably going to be your starting shooting guard if we deal Terry. But if we don't, then I think Brandon Miller will be starting small forward. Bridges will come off the bench, man. Then you have Rozier at shooting guard, LaMelo at point guard. Whoever is going to back them up, because I have no clue who that will be anymore.
Oubre could be the possible backup 2, and then your backup 1 could either be you could experiment with Nick Smith. I don't know. From Summer League, he didn't really look like he's the best at.
Like, you could also do Bailey.
Guard. He looks more like a 2 guard, to be honest. From Summer League, can't take too much stock into Summer League because let's be honest, LeBron was not very good in Summer League. Look at him now. So you can't really use Summer League as
I said, we can always put Bailey at point guard. Back up.
Amari is definitely a 2. I don't think he could be a 1. Also, Amari, I feel like is most likely going to be with the Swarm this year. I don't think he really plays with us very much. I think he's mainly going to be in the Green Trail. He might come up a little bit.
Your starting center. Richards is your backup center.
Backup, yeah. PJ could also play the backup 5 as well when they want to go small. Because then you could have Miller at 4 or 3 and Bridges at the other 1, and then you have LaMelo, Terry maybe, and then PJ at the 5 or something like that. You can always play.
Bridges would be at the 4 in that scenario because he's a lot more used to playing power forward than Brandon Miller is. So you put Bridges at the 4 in that scenario.
Makes
But
sense.
we have a lot of small. We would have way too many small forwards on our roster at that point.
Yeah, because
we have
Oubre's really Oubre's like a 2/3, so he could either play small
Oubre,
forward.
yeah, he could go back up behind Terry, but then we still have the problem of Bridges, Hayward, and Miller.
Yeah, most likely is what you probably want to do is when you get to the deadline, you probably want to deal Hayward, if not Terry, to get one of those contracts off your books. I know Hayward comes off anyway, but just so you can open up a spot
Or
for
maybe
a younger
deal
guy.
both.
You could deal both. I don't see that likely.
Or deal them before the deadline. I mean,
well, yeah, you obviously can do that too, but I don't see them trading both because if they do that, there's really not a veteran in the locker room. If you trade both of them, your veteran would be LaMelo. And I mean, obviously LaMelo is a good player, but you want someone in the locker room that's like a veteran, been in the league for a long time. So Hayward's kind of like that right now. He's like the veteran. And then obviously you'd have Terry as the next guy up. But other than that, everyone's very young. Miller's obviously a rookie. Bridges was just, that whole mess. So I don't think he's really someone you want leading your locker room currently. Maybe in the future he can rebuild himself, but currently the way he is, probably not.
PJ has been in there since 2019, though.
Yeah, and then Mark's obviously only a second-year player.
Yeah,
Richard's
and then
like a third year.
If we do get Oubre back, it would be a lot easier to get rid of Hayward because we would still have that veteran guy in Oubre.
Right.
Yeah, Oubre has been in the league. Oubre's been in the league since what, 2015, something like that?
Yeah, he started with the Wizards, then went to the Suns for a little bit, then the Warriors for a year, and then came here. So yeah, he's definitely been kind of all over almost at this point.
Didn't he go to the Wizards twice? Didn't he go Wizards, Suns, Wizards, Warriors, then us?
Yeah, I believe so. Something like that.
Yeah,
I know he was originally drafted by the Wizards, so that's where he started.
Yeah, I was like so confused for a second. I'm like, wait a minute, didn't you do that? I mean,
and then he went to the Warriors for that 1 year. That 1 year he was in Golden State. He was so bad at three, especially to start the season.
Know.
He started it with like 0 for 30 or something. It was ridiculous. But then he rebounded a little bit, but he still wasn't really that good for him. That's kind of why they just didn't pay him, and that's why we paid him. Because at the time, that contract looked like an overpay because Oubre looked horrible in Golden State. Obviously, it ended up probably being a decent contract. He played pretty well for us, other than him getting injured all the time, but that's kind of the whole team story, so that's just the Hornets for you. Yeah. But in Summer League, I really liked how Nick Smith was playing overall. I think he played pretty well. He had that one game where he scored 33. He definitely showed he could score a little bit, which is good. It's always good to see a little bit of spurts. Obviously, he didn't look the best at all times. That's kind of true with the whole team when you only win one game in Summer League out of 7 if you're including California Classic as well. one out of 7 if you include that. So overall, they looked good. Miller looked kind of bad in the California Classic to start. He was picking up a ton of fouls. Would have fouled out if they were NBA games, but in Summer League, you get up to 10 fouls, so he was all right. But didn't really look great, California Classic. Played against Victor, looked really good in that game. Liked how he played against Victor. A lot of pressure in that game. Victor's first game, sold out gym in Vegas. Liked how he played once he got to Vegas.
Yeah.
But still, obviously, has a little bit of hiccups. Not still, obviously, 100%, but definitely looked a lot better once he did get to Vegas. And maybe just got a little bit more experience ready into the game and all that type of stuff. And then Amari Bailey looked pretty good for most of Summer League, not all. Book Night was here and there. Sometimes he looked good. Sometimes he looked absolute garbage. So it just depends. We'll have to see how he ends up fitting in. If he's going to end up being like towards the end of our bench in Charlotte, or if he's going to go down to Greensboro, work down there. Maybe he could try to get himself against easier competition, get him some more playing time. Obviously, the G League's still tough just compared to NBA competition, obviously. And then we'll have to see with everyone else. Kai Jones, really, I liked his hustle a lot of Summer League. He was putting in the effort, which is really good. Good to see from the young guy, 3rd year. Kind of a big year for him because after this year, who knows, this might be his last chance to get playing time, at least in Charlotte, if he doesn't take advantage this year. He might be in Greensboro as well at some point, but I think he'll mainly probably be NBA roster, is my guess. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Doing.
What?
We'll see what Kai ends up doing if he ends up getting put down to Greensboro, if he plays mainly in Charlotte. I think he'll kind of do a mixture, but I think he'll mainly be Charlotte. It's my guess.
No, I get that.
We'll have to see what they end up doing. So, got anything for Summer League to add on?
I mean, I think the team played all right. It wasn't a great summer league, of course. We went like 1-5 or something like that. 1-4.
1-4 in
Me
the
and
actual summer league, and then
yeah,
0-2 in
0-2
California
in the
Classic.
other.
So
I mean, it
one and
was a
six overall.
joke. It was a joke of a summer league for a record wise, but it looked like the players actually got better over the course of it. So that was good. Brandon Miller had some definite bright spots in there. I mean, I will say when we drafted Brandon Miller, I think both of us hated it. But now I don't hate that as much. I think it was a decent draft pick. I mean,
So if you want to go into our opinions on the draft, we could also do that real quick. So Miller, position wise, that's the right fit because Scoot Henderson's really a point guard, and him and LaMelo both ball dominant, so might not have worked out as well. I think Scoot would have adjusted and ended up going to two guard if we ended up drafting him. Overall, I think he was the more talented player. So if you're going based on talent, who's like the better guy? At least coming out, it looks like Scoot's probably better.
yeah.
But obviously, NBA, it could drastically change because, as you know, doesn't always work that way. It might look like he's better once he gets to the league, doesn't always work out. So could be the opposite. Miller could be the better guy in the long haul. But overall, that looked like the better player. Ended up going with Miller, more positional fit, needed another forward. At the time, keep in mind, we didn't know if Bridges was coming back. I mean, there was a good chance it kind of felt like for most people that Bridges was probably coming back, but keep in mind there was no official word on that. So you have to assume there was no Bridges. You also have to assume no PJ. He wasn't signed. He still isn't currently. So he could have been gone. So what would your forwards been? Gordon Hayward and then Kai Jones? That would have been your starting forwards probably if you didn't end up drafting Miller and them two didn't end up coming back. You'd have Kai at the 4. You'd have Gordon at the 3. I mean, it's probably not the most competitive. If you're trying to win, you probably don't want Gordon Hayward and Kai Jones, you're starting two forwards. I mean, Gordon Hayward's a good veteran, but at this point in his career, I don't know if he's really as good of a starter at this point.
Yeah, no, not
and
at
Kai
all.
Jones is still developing a little bit. He's really good, like hustle and commitment, but I still think he needs a little bit more time. Maybe off the bench would help him a little bit, just getting some more minutes in the NBA because he has looked good in the NBA sometimes when he's played. It's just a lot of it's been garbage minutes, so it's like it's kind of hard to take that with like. Could he really do that when it matters? But it kind of depends. We'll just have to see how it develops and if he gets more playing time again this year and all that type of stuff.
Agree.
With most likely there'll probably be some sort of injuries with the Hornets, so he'll probably end up getting some more playing time than he normally would anyway.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
I agree
with the injuries, but there'll probably be somebody. There's every year there's someone that gets hurt, or we get the whole team hurt. It just depends on the year.
Yeah, that seems about right.
Unfortunately. But you got to do the best you can with what you have. So that's why we might see some of Bouknight or Bailey possibly up in the NBA playing a lot because if LaMelo or Terry gets hurt, you're kind of short on guards already. We don't have a ton of guards on the roster.
No, definitely.
Like, Nick Smith will probably be on the roster to start the year. I'm assuming he'll mainly just be in Charlotte, probably as a backup 1 or 2. And then maybe Bouknight could be the other backup. But it depends what they do with the rest of free agency and if they make any more trades because technically they still could trade before the season and get another guard. Or sign a guard, obviously, as well. Wouldn't be a bad idea to try to sign or trade for like a veteran guard. Obviously, it would be someone off the bench, so not anyone that's like crazy good, but also someone that's like manageable. Kind of like what we did a couple years ago with IT, Isaiah Thomas bringing him in. Kind of that sort of deal. Obviously, not going to be a game changer, but definitely would be good for helping out the young guys and just helping to come off the bench. I think Isaiah Thomas was really good for the Hornets that year. I mean, I know he was only there for a couple months, so didn't really do too much in the end, but I think he was really good. It sounded like he had a good time in Charlotte at least, so that's always good. And locker room probably liked him if I had to guess.
No, I get that.
At that point in his career, he's just a veteran and just playing to try to maybe get a contract the next year, which unfortunately he never did. So at this point, I think he's probably done with the NBA, Isaiah Thomas, but we'll see.
Yeah.
He was really good in Boston and then got traded, and that kind of ended that was kind of the start of the end once he got traded out of Boston.
Yeah.
It was so sad for him, though. He got traded and he was heartbroken.
Like fell off, and then he just practically fell off the face.
Part of the Kyrie deal.
Yeah.
Kyrie from Cleveland to Boston. So he went to Cleveland. Nobody even remembers because he was just hurt pretty much the whole time when he got to Cleveland. Never even really.
Well, I remember.
In Cleveland?
Yeah.
I mean, I know he played a little bit, but like he got hurt. He didn't even play that much.
I know. I still remember him in Cleveland. Then he went to then he was out of the league for a bit. Then he went to Denver.
He went to the Nuggets G League.
Yeah.
And then he was playing really well. He averaged like 40-something points. It was crazy. He played like 2
he was doing insanely well in the G League, and then he went to us for like the remainder of that year, and that was it.
He went to, I think, the Mavericks or something, or the Kings first, and then us. Because then he went back to the G League. I forgot. It was one of those teams he signed a 10-day. It was either the Mavericks or Kings. Then went back to the G League for like 1 or 2 games. Then we got him. And then after that, he stayed here for the rest of the year. And then that's pretty much the last he's had of NBA ball.
Yeah.
Since then, he has.
Wish we could have gotten Kemba back for at least one more year.
Yeah, at this point now he's over in Europe. So at this point, he's probably done with his NBA career if he's over in Europe at this point.
I really do wish we could have gotten him back just for this year so he could retire as a Hornet. I have a feeling that I think he really will do this. I think he'll sign a 10-day with us just to retire as a Hornet.
Yeah, he might do that. That's possible.
Because, I mean, we both know that this city means a lot to him.
Well, yeah, and obviously once he left here, Boston gave him that big deal. I mean, he never really
got his career.
Yeah, I was gonna say Boston he never really got that chance to be the guy.
They treated him terribly, and I don't mean the fans. No, the fans actually, I'm pretty sure, loved him. No, the team themselves treated him terribly.
And then also
they made him play when he was hurt.
Yeah, then obviously once he got to New York, then that was just he had a couple good games in New York though, so that was good for him. But
you just can't make a player play and ruin his career when he's hurt like that. You can't do that.
That's why Kawhi left the Spurs.
Yeah,
that's why he always does load management now because of that one incident. I'm pretty sure that's the reason why he's just dramatized from it. Why he always tries to do some load management. Fortunately, it didn't really work for him this year. He did load management and got hurt after the first game or whatever it was, second game, one of those in the playoffs, and then missed the rest of the playoffs. So didn't really help too much for him there.
All right.
But overall, the Hornets are starting to look on the up. I mean, they're still very young. Pretty much have been that way for a long time. Just a lot of young talent around. Just got to hope that young talent will eventually blossom. LaMelo's looked very good. Last year only played 30-something games, so not a lot. I think it was 36, I believe, somewhere around there. So didn't play a lot of games. Part of the reason why the team couldn't really do much, because if you look at their record with and without LaMelo, it was a lot better with LaMelo. So if LaMelo could have played a little bit more, maybe would have been a little bit closer to a play-in spot or maybe even gets him one.
No, I get that.
With him being hurt, kind of hard for the team to do much with him being the star player, obviously.
So speaking of like play-in spots and everything, all right, what do we think the Hornets record will be this year?
I mean, it's still kind of hard to tell, and the roster's still going to have to be filled a little bit more because obviously you still have questions about PJ and Kelly, and if they don't come back, you're going to have to get other guys to replace them. So it's kind of hard to give a prediction currently without all the roster being filled. So probably going to be a little bit off. Once you get the final roster, it'll be a little bit easier to tell. And also that, and then obviously can't take into account for injuries. So if injuries happen, it'll screw it up too. But that we're just going to assume not really much because you don't want to assume injuries. So I
say if we're healthy and we get PJ and Oubre back, we get 50 wins this year.
I was going to say probably somewhere around the 42, 44, probably somewhere around there is my guess.
If we stay healthy and have those two back, we get 50 wins with this.
You also have to keep in mind, we're still going to have younger guys. We're still a younger team. And the one thing that was a little bit concerning when the team was healthy, not always, but sometimes, was they couldn't always finish games. Like they would have the lead, then they would let them right back into the game. Sometimes they would be able to shut the door and finish it, but other times they would let the team right back in the opponent and just let them go and take the win.
Yeah, but most of our team is older now, so
I mean, it's still fairly young, the team.
Other than I will say, Mark with his defense, he doesn't care about that.
Yes, Mark's very good at defense. That's one
thing.
Mark
is just incredible. He doesn't care. He'll do it anyways. So I don't think that'll be as much of a problem.
I love how they did the draft with getting Mark. Just the only thing I don't like is I don't know why they would draft Durant and then just trade him for practically almost nothing. We got the Nuggets first round pick. Like, what was the point of that? Obviously, everyone knew the Nuggets were going to be good this year. I mean, maybe not win the finals, but at least make it to the playoffs. Like, come on, it's the Nuggets. They're going to make it.
I get that.
So I don't know what the point is trading out of the lottery for a Nuggets first round pick, but whatever.
I don't know.
I personally thought we should have either traded the pick, but like got actual value, like than just the first round pick that's end of first round. Or if you didn't want to do that, draft someone else. Like you could have drafted Mark at 13 if that's your guy. Like, because that's what they said. They're like, oh, Mark's our guy. That's why we trade Durant. Okay, then draft Mark at 13. And you could have drafted like AJ Griffin or something, who went to the Hawks right after Mark at number 16. He would have been really good to pair on this team. Imagine him and Williams. They both went to Duke too. Would have been a little Duke connection. I mean, I know Jordan was the owner at the time, but it's kind of funny. All Duke centers almost. You had Plumlee, you had Williams, and then obviously you had Richards, who was Kentucky, but still kind of funny. Whole like almost UNC rivals at that point.
Okay, Kentucky's not a UNC rival.
Close enough.
No, they're just both blue bloods. That's all.
Whatever. It's kind of funny though. He was the owner, went to UNC, and he has two Duke centers as like his starting centers at the time. It's kind of funny. But yeah, I ended up trading Plumlee. I mean, they didn't really get much. I don't know if there was a big market for him, but pretty much gave him.
We literally traded Plumlee for Reggie Jackson, and we got rid of Jackson immediately.
And a second round pick in 2027 or 8.
I forgot. What did we trade for Svi?
I think we traded one of the seconds. Like we got a second, then traded it or something.
So literally, we got the GOAT, Svi Mikhailiuk. By the way, we should re-sign him. I love Svi.
I don't know if that's gonna happen. We'll see, but
he's a great role player. We can sign him for literally league minimum, and we'd be fine.
Nah, we'll see what happens with him. He's still a free agent too. Speaking of that, he's not signed anywhere obviously yet, but we'll see what happens with him. He was pretty good when he got playing time. Thing was also it was a lot of garbage time too, so it's kind of hard to tell. And then even when he did get real playing, even when he did get real playing time, it was at the end of the year when like teams are like, all right, at this point, we're either in the playoffs or not. Like we don't really have much to play for, so that's part of it too.
All I know is Svi Mikhailiuk owns the Dallas Mavericks.
Okay. Speaking of Dallas Mavericks, Dennis Smith got the game winner against the Mavericks last year. That was fun.
I know. We own their impoverished franchise.
Okay, what happened a couple of years ago in the preseason?
It's preseason ball. Nobody cares.
Yeah, I can't believe we beat them.
The funniest part was I was at that game too.
I can't believe we beat the Mavericks twice and they had Kyrie and Luka. And that's when the famous moment of Luka in an interview being like almost acting like he's just like seems like he's almost depressed at that point, that interview after the first game in Dallas when they're asking him about how are you and Kyrie like working together and all that and just not going well. Keep in mind at the time they were like, I don't know, 2-8, 2-7, something like that with Kyrie. It was they did not do very well when Kyrie got there.
I don't know why, but I feel like I look like Mike Trout right now. I don't know why.
But we'll see. Maybe the Mavericks can bounce back this year. Obviously, they bring Kyrie back. So, I mean, I guess you don't trade all that to get Kyrie just to let him leave. So, that'd been a waste to trade Finney Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, and however many picks they traded just to let him leave in the offseason. That kind of was a waste. I was very surprised, though. They just tanked and said, nah, screw it. We're not going to the play-in. It's pretty much what they did. And they're like, we'll just go for Victor at this point.
Yeah.
They literally didn't even move up. They got exactly what they were supposed to get, their pick.
I know.
The funny thing is, if their pick moved back, it would have been the next pick. So it was top 10 protected. And they were projected to get 10. So if it moved to 11, 12, 13, or 14, would have been a New York Knicks first-round pick. And that would have been really a waste. That would have been pretty funny. Maybe that's why they tanked. They wanted to keep their pick.
Maybe.
Could be why. But yeah, the Hornets definitely jumped up in the lottery. I was very surprised with that, going all the way up to 2.
Yeah, I was surprised with that too.
I mean, obviously it would have been cool to get 1, but I mean,
we'll take Brandon Miller.
Right. In the long haul, we'll have to see. It might be better off because you never know. A lot of those guys that are really tall, even though Victor's very talented, I'm not taking anything away from him. He's probably going to be a really good player if he can stay healthy. Just the problem is with those guys, they normally can't stay healthy. So we'll have to see if he could stay healthy. Normally those really tall guys, that's what always ruins their careers pretty much, unfortunately. But if he can't stay healthy, he'll probably be Very good. Probably might even be the face of the NBA at one point if he could stay healthy and play really well. But we'll have to see how it goes. Wishing the best of luck with staying healthy, hopefully, but never know. Those taller guys, normally their knees start to give out at some point.
Oh, I get that.
Yeah, overall, I think the Hornets have done all right in their offseason. They brought back who they really needed to bring back. You definitely cannot let LaMelo leave, so that's good bringing him back. They could have waited until next offseason technically to do it, but then it would be more money. So what's the point? Just get it over with. Also, it makes him feel like we're committing to LaMelo more as well. Gives him like more of a confidence, like, oh, the team's really interested in keeping me. Because if you're waiting until the last second, kind of like what the Suns did with Aiden, obviously it's a little bit different of a story. Aiden's not their star player, but same sort of thing. It kind of makes them feel like you guys don't really value me that much. You just kind of let me leave because he signed with the Pacers. But then, obviously, once he did sign, then they matched it because they're like, well, we're not losing you for nothing. But yeah, definitely valued LaMelo, at least from what I could tell. It makes him feel more valuable. And then Bridges, really good teammate of LaMelo. He was the one that surprised him with Rookie of the Year in that COVID year. In the fan shop, he surprised him with the trophy. But yeah, they definitely seem like best friends from what we could tell. Obviously, we don't know their actual relationship, but from what we can tell, at least.
What are we grading this offseason for the Hornets?
Right now, it's kind of hard to finish because they're probably still going to make more moves in my guess, at least signing or trade or something. I highly doubt they're only going to sign Bridges and LaMelo, and that's their only moves of the whole offseason. But based on what they've done so far, I would give it right now like a B+, I guess I'll give it, because you get LaMelo back. That's really important. You got Bridges, so that's good. But the problem is you still have some holes on the roster. You got to fill. You either got to get a replacement for Oubre or something, or a replacement for PJ, or you got to bring him back. You got to make a decision on what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because the longer you wait, the less time you have the team working together. Because if they're not signed, they can't come to the facility. They can't work out in the gym. Obviously, they can work out in their own gyms or whatever else.
Yeah,
but they can't work with the team officially and all that type of stuff. So it's just going to make it harder for them to come in. If you're trying to get a new player too, that would make it like really difficult. Like they're not able to meet with the team until preseason if you don't sign them until then. Obviously, you don't want that. And obviously, working with the coaching staff as well. You want them to get some familiarity. But as it is now, I would give them a B+ because you got LaMelo back, and that's really the most important thing for this offseason, probably.
Yeah, I'd give them probably a B+ as well. I mean, I'm more leaning towards an A-, but I'll still give them a B+ because it's been a decent offseason for us, a pretty good offseason compared to previous years, but it's all right.
Yeah, so overall, just let us know if there's anything you want us to improve in the future on this podcast. Obviously, it's just our first episode. So if you like the setup, if you want the setup a little different, or whatever else that you need, just let us know. And thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
See ya.